The Clippers are the most interesting team in the NBA right now. After starting off 5-8 with James Harden, they have looked dominant as they have won their last 13 of 15 games and beaten teams by an average of 12 points. On paper, it looks like this team just needed some time to gel together and have figured it out. They have the most talent in the NBA and a great coach in Ty Lue to complement their roster. But does their record really represent how they're playing on the court? While this team has a winning formula, I'm not sure that this formula will translate in the postseason. Let's take it back to when the Clippers were initially struggling with Harden in the lineup. One of the biggest problems with their play was poor spacing on the pick and roll. Before the season, Ty Lue said one of the main aspects that they needed to incorporate in their offense was cutting that slot guy to open it up for their scorers to get into their spots and really get into the paint. When one of the big three is running the pick and roll, the Clippers have been stationary, which allows defenses to be aggressive in defending the ball handler. Considering the fact that they're mostly playing at least one wing player that can't shoot, standing on the perimeter is doing nothing but giving the defense more leeway to defend the main action. The Pelicans put this theory to the test by having the low man come up aggressively high on the pick and roll, and this stagnated the Clippers pick and roll immensely. The potential cutters either just did not cut behind the low man or struggled to be in real position to cut. For example, Paul George is running the pick and roll and Terrence Mann for some reason moves inside. As he's cutting back out, Zubac has the ball and Mann has a chance to cut, but he's floating back out, so that's not available. This turns into a Kawhi ISO and he ends up bailing Mann out. Here, Westbrook runs the pick and roll and Jordan Hawkins is waiting at the circle for Zubac. This gives Powell a prime opportunity to cut, but he does not, and Westbrook is forced to put up a bad shot. Because of these issues, the Pelicans had decided to play this type of coverage for most of the game. For the Clippers, the only way they were able to really take advantage of these situations was if the roll man was open. For an action that should provide more advantages, the Clippers were primarily relying on their stars to make a play off the dribble, which can work, but it also makes their offense less potent. Their stars also have limitations which have limited the effectiveness of the pick and roll. One of the main ways you could slow down the Clippers is by blitzing Harden and Kawhi in the pick and roll, because it can't make the swing pass to the corner. In the pick and roll, you would have two men defending the ball, which means the low man would have to step up to take away the roll man. This means that the main area of attack would be the corner guy, but Harden and Kawhi don't like to make that pass. Instead, they take an extra dribble or two before making a decision. It makes sense that they may need to do this since they can't get the pass over the double team, but it also slows down the possession and makes it easy for teams guarding the pick and roll to recover. Denver had done a great job doing this down the stretch against LA, even though they did win the game. In this game, the Clippers struggled to make the right reads decisively, which closed down good opportunities. For example, here Paul George gets doubled on the pick and roll and Tice slips the screen. Jackson comes down to guard Tice, which leaves Westbrook open, but George hesitates before throwing it to Westbrook. Now the lob to Tice is available, but Westbrook takes a dribble which allows the Nuggets to recover, and now he's forced to throw to Kobe Brown in the corner, who is a poor three-point shooter. Here, Harden runs the pick and roll and the Nuggets splits again. Harden picks up his dribble and hesitates before shoveling it to Zubac. He ends up getting pressured and it ends up with a Paul George contested three. When you look at these possessions, you may be thinking that there's not really a place for them to throw it to, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. However, this is what makes someone like Luka Doncic so special because of his ability to create angles for himself to make these type of passes. While Luka is not the most athletic, the one area where he uses his vertical is to get the ball over these double teams, which is something that the big three seldom does. And because they don't, they end up either holding the ball for too long or they're trying to use their dribble to split the double team, which could shrink the floor and allow the defense to recover easier. These limitations as passers don't go away with more time spent on the court, which means they can be exploited if defenses continue to blitz the big three. This is compounded by the fact that their bigs are not good passers either when they get doubled. Ivica Zubac and Daniel Tice are average passers at best because of their limited passing ability and court awareness. With Zubac, he tends to take a dribble in the paint before delivering the ball to the cutter, which often gives the defense enough time to recover. He is hesitant to ever throw a lob when the situation calls for it, which means defenses can always anticipate the bounce pass. But maybe more importantly, both bigs have had trouble identifying the open man quickly and getting the ball to them in positions to score. They tend to be tunnel vision, which means someone in the corner may be open, but they won't find their respective guy in time for an open shot. At that point, the advantage is lost and the possession typically ends poorly. Because of these struggles, the Clippers had to make a few changes in an attempt to create more space and run a more efficient offense. Instead of relying on pick and rolls, the Clippers decided that they would rely on more isolation basketball. Since using the pick and roll was leading to a lot of isolation possessions anyways, they would be better suited to using those possessions to beat their respective defenders and then make a play. Kawhi Leonard has been really good in these situations as he has averaged 1.19 points per possession in isolation situations this season. The Clippers typically give him the ball on the right wing as it is easier for him to get to his right hand and get a good shot. Leonard has been really effective in this area as he is often too strong for his respective matchup, which helps him create space or get to where he needs on the floor. If his matchup holds his ground initially, Kawhi can always resort to the fadeaway to create space. Now, of course, like the pick and rolls, teams will try to double Kawhi so that he has to either pass it or shoot over extreme pressure. One of Kawhi's best traits in these situations is his ability to get out of double teams to create space. The Dallas Mavericks had tried numerous times doubling Kawhi in these situations, but Leonard continuously was able to get out of these situations, whether it was finding the open man or stepping around the double team for better looks. Here, Kawhi has Luka on him and Powell steps up to give Doncic support. Kawhi first bursts by Luka and then spins off Powell before using the rim as protection for the layup. Later in the fourth, with the Clippers trailing by 2, Kawhi is on the right wing and Derrick Jones tries to reach for the pass, which gives Kawhi a lane to his right. Knowing that the double is coming, Leonard goes immediately and he's able to find Coffee for 3. Now, you may have noticed that Kawhi was able to swing this pass under constant pressure, and that's what the benefit of being in isolation does for him. As weird as it may sound, isolation basketball actually offers more ways for Kawhi to break down a defense due to his versatile skill set. Since Kawhi is in space and can beat his defender in numerous ways, defenses can't necessarily predict what he's going to do. Even if they double, he is explosive enough to evade the double teams, which then puts the defense in scramble mode. As a result, he can create passing lanes for himself and deliver the ball to open players. But in pick and roll situations, he may naturally face more pressure because you're inviting another defender to come after you. In those scenarios, it's harder for Leonard to find space for himself to score. For him to break down the defense then, he would need to use his eyes and passing abilities, which he's not as adept for. And this applies to a lot of these players on the Clippers roster. They have at least 4 to 5 guys that can isolate and make a play because they are either shifty or really quick off the bounce, which provides tons of pressure on defenses. Even if their roster isn't composed of great 3-point shooters, defenses are naturally going to hone in on the big 3 anyways. This means those players that can't shoot can always cut or duck in behind those help defenders, which opens up a lot of scoring opportunities. And when you have people always cutting or moving to create space, that is another element that teams have to think about. To make these isolation situations more effective, the Clippers decided to increase their pace in the offense. In December, they are the 10th slowest team compared to the 5th slowest team in November, which doesn't sound like a big difference, but it's actually created much better scoring opportunities for them. For one, pushing the ball up faster puts the defense in chaos as they're trying to figure out how to set up their coverages even after a made basket. After Luka makes his basket, Russell Westbrook rushes up the floor, which draws Dante Exum and Grant Williams. Kawhi is open for a 3 and he misses, but because Luka's just jogging down the floor, Tice is in a better position for a rebound, which opens up a 3 for Norman Powell. Russell Westbrook and Norman Powell have been excellent at pushing pace off the bench. While Westbrook is 35 years old, teams still need to respect his speed, and he's able to find open guys early in the shot clock. Even if it doesn't look like there's a shot available, Russ will still push it in an attempt to put more pressure, which could lead to more opportunities. When Powell pushes the ball up the floor, he tends to try and create for himself. Since he can finish with either hand, he's able to attack from any part of the floor and score. As he gets ahead of steam, he tends to use the crossover to get by the first man, who just got it back and can finish over any other help defenders. He can blow by you and change directions if he has to find that opening. And others have followed suit, especially the big 3 who typically play a slower style. Since teams are often looking to double them as much as possible, they have been looking for opportunities to create favorable situations for themselves, which has resulted in more fouls or easy baskets. Even if the opposing team does a good job getting back, they might find themselves in more one-on-one scenarios as teams are getting situated on defense, and that in itself is a win. In the half court, the Clippers have also played with better instincts, which means quick decision making and faster possessions. When Harden first came to LA, Ty Lue was trying to organize the offense by running a lot of plays designed for multiple options. While this is good, especially for a team that was unsure of their roles, there was a lot of poor execution, mostly resulting from poor screens, which meant the Clippers had trouble gaining an advantage on these plays and wasted a lot of shot clock. Now the Clippers still run plays to create a more solidified game plan, especially to get their players to be in the most efficient positions possible, but they are also reading the defense and using their instincts to make plays. For example, Ty Lue calls, which means a player would receive a pin down screen and then a dribble handoff from the big man to make a play. Here, Tice makes the mistake of setting a screen when he should be getting the ball from Kawhi. Westbrook tells Tice to stay at the top of the key, but instead of running the play, LA calls an audible. Powell clears out of Leonard's way so that Kawhi can ISO, and since the Mavs double, Tice ends up getting an open three. Here, Harden is running an ISO and Terrence Mann runs to the baseline to be available for a pass. Harden tells Mann to clear out to the right side so that he can get to his left, and he's able to get the layup from a goaltending call. All in all, the Clippers have definitely addressed some offensive issues by adjusting the way they have run their offense. But even though you can argue that this new squad is winning a lot despite the fact that they have only been together for a few months, the million-dollar question in LA still remains. Can this team win in the playoffs consistently by choosing isolation basketball as their primary offense over pick and rolls? Given their roster, it makes sense that this team would resort to isolations because of the big three scoring capabilities. But considering how effective the pick and roll can be, going away from such a lucrative action only makes the Clippers' offense less potent, especially when teams are going to do everything they can to make the big three's lives difficult. Even if the Clippers aren't great passers, it is still necessary to at least complement their ISO game with the pick and roll to have enough offensive versatility to win playoff games consistently. But with over half the season still remaining, there is still a lot of time to improve their pick and roll offense, and there are at least a few ways that they can make this action more effective. One of the main reasons the Clippers pick and roll has not worked is because they have not been able to penetrate the defense consistently like their isolations have. But against OKC, Ty Lue had busted out the spade pick and roll a few times, which worked really well. With the element of a second back screen being a surprise, this allowed the ball handler to get straight to the rim on a consistent basis. The problem is that they only ran this a few times, even though it had worked all 3 times. Now, it's fair to assume that OKC may have been caught off guard, as a spade pick and roll has not been a staple in the Clippers' offense, but I believe that they should try running this more often, as their ball handlers are smart enough to know how to manipulate their initial defender to find a lane. Once that happens, there will usually be help, but those help defenders will be caught off guard by the second back screen, which should give the ball handler enough space to get to the rim. Sprinkling this in their offense should at least catch defenses off guard and offer another way for non-shooters to be more effective. In addition, the Clippers bigs need to be more diligent with their screening on pick and rolls. Since the basic pick and roll has not been as effective as they want it to be, Ty Lue has elected to run more double drag screens to see if they could get a 2-on-1 advantage. When the pick and roll has worked, it's because the bigs have done a good job recognizing when to screen and when to roll to the basket. Here, Kawhi is about to run the double drag. The Clippers want Mann to set the screen and for Zubac to roll to the basket. However, Mann sets a really poor screen and Zubac misreads the play. Even though the play is designed for Zubac to roll, he should have set a screen on Ingram, which would force Valanciunas to make a choice between Kawhi and Zoo. But Zubac rolls to the basket and the double drag action turns into a Terrence Mann jumper. Compare that to the next possession. Zubac sets a hard screen on Dyson Daniels, which gets Harden an advantage. Mann sees that and he smartly gets out of the way to open space for Zubac to roll, and he gets a dunk. For this action to work more frequently, it's up to Zubac to read how defenses are guarding against the respective ball handlers. He's been a little inconsistent in this area, but it's something well within his control that can definitely make a big difference. He's pretty decent in the paint once he has good position, but it's about getting to that position that has given LA some problems. Finally, understanding when to cut will be essential, especially for players that are not true threats on the perimeter. While the shot may not be an advantage, these non-shooters can create advantages by either blowing up the help defender that's trying to rotate back to them, or finding open space behind those help defenders to create pressure. Because of the big three's inability to swing the ball to the corner, It's not going to do anyone favors by just standing in the corner instead of moving when there's an opportunity to do so. Ultimately, there is no denying that this team is one of the most talented teams in the NBA right now on paper, and it's important to make this year count. The Clippers have made a few big trades and don't have much to show for it, but with everyone finally healthy, they will have to figure out how they want to run their offense to give themselves their best chance for their first title in franchise history. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.